So historically, I think so many people don't know historically and theologically how even the slave trade was seen as almost a missionary mission. That we're getting these savages off of the continent of Africa to make them real people, to give them a better, and they could find Jesus. And that's why we must, especially when the African American intellectuals, we must push the issue that that slavery didn't bring Christianity to Africa. There was Christianity in Africa before there was ever a Christian in the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
Do your history on that. All you intellectuals and millennials that want to call Christianity white man's religion. Yeah. No, the faith was already established in the the dark continent of Africa. Yeah. The faith was already established there before 1492 ever took place, and Christopher Columbus came over and he found this new world with people already here. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all said this conversation, this is just the way I talk. Go ahead, Jason, so I don't get in trouble.
That's why to even have this conversation is to actually, we have to get outside of our American bubble. Wow. And I say that our nationalistic bubble. It has to be outside of that to be able to have a conversation. And so everything that I brought up goes back to Genesis 1, or even goes back to the establishment before this country. In the scheme of things, this country has only been here a short amount of time.
Yeah, very short.
Yeah. Just a couple of 100 years that we've been here. So what we have in America, I'm thankful that I'm an American. I'm thankful that I was born here in the U.S. But we cannot build a doctrine off of the nation that we're born into.
Uh-oh, you better stop.
And we cannot build a doctrine and a theology based upon the environment or the culture that we're in. And that's what has occurred and happened. That is called, in Romans chapter 12, when Paul is exhorted, he said, do not be conformed to the world, but be renewed by the transformation of your mind. So when he speaks about confirmation, that word in there is to not be conformed to the culture of the age. And so the church, in America, we began to build our substrate and who we are based upon the environment that we're in. But to find out, to bring reformation, to find out who we truly are, we have to broaden our perspective a little bit. And we have to look back. And going back to Genesis 1, what does God say? What does he spoke about humankind in general? But then going back so much further to understand, if we were to really trace it back, I was an other before Africans were an other.
Right.
Let's make this clear. I was a Gentile. I'm the same way. Jesus first came to the Jewish nation, so I was one that was not accepted by others.
Yeah.
And so if I understand my place, it won't create a substruct of now that I possess something that I own. I don't own Christianity.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going too far, but I don't own Christianity.
Yeah.
I'm a steward of what God has entrusted me with, but I do not possess something. It was here long before I was here, and unless Jesus comes back, or until he comes back, it'll be here long after I'm gone. So to understand the perspective and the right worldview is to get a more eternal perspective and a more broadened perspective. What causes us many times to walk in circles is to have a temporary, momentary mindset.
Wow.
And that you feel like, and let's just go even further. The white and black divide is a new divide. It's been racial division since the beginning of time.
Right.
We're dealing with it because it is in our current situation, and what we must confront as a church, and what we must confront as a people. But the demon behind it is not new.
Yeah.
He's been here back with Cain and Abel when they were fighting one another. And when it was the same devil that caused hatred and caused distinction to cause separation has been here since then. So let's broaden our perspective a little bit. That's how Peter could say that we're not ignorant to the enemy's devices. Why? Because he's been doing the same thing generation after generation after generation. And that's why James could say, don't fall into the same trap. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Don't keep falling into the same one. And humanity is falling into the same temptation over and over again, that there is something about your distinctiveness or something about my distinctiveness that makes one or the other superior. And in the Church of Christ, we see in the book of Acts, we see all the way, and if you want to talk theologically, what we have, I'm taking too long, what we have in the Old Testament, we have before the nation was a nation, it was a family. Before it was a family, it was a person. So you go all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob becomes a family, and then it turns into a nation. And God said, on that nation, I'm going to show favor. I'm going to show blessing. So there was national pride because they were the favored people of God. Now that was favored on a Jewish Israelite people, on a nation. That does not belong, and you cannot interpret those scriptures to apply to America.
That's right.
Because what happened in Acts chapter 2 is now 120 people that gathered together for 10 days in an upper room come down out of a room, and the first thing that happens when they come down out of a room is that they all begin to speak in different languages. Why was the Holy Spirit poured out on Pentecost, at the Feast of Pentecost? Because there were going to be all these nationalities that were going to be welcome there, and at Pentecost 120 come out of an upper room empowered by the Holy Spirit, and they began to speak to people with other cultures in their own language.
They're going to take your degree.
So they can have it. Just don't want to take my anointing. So they began to speak in the language of a different culture.
That's right.
So the first expression of being Holy Spirit filled was relating to someone from a different culture. Not to say that their culture should change or my culture should change. But now, my culture is now anointed by the Holy Spirit to relate to you, not telling you to come to my place, but letting me relate to you in your language to be able to converse with you, empowered by the Holy Spirit, so that the same gospel that I received, of which if it had not been for the grace of God, I would not be included either. But I was a whosoever will, and I was the Gentile that Jesus had to speak to Peter about. So Jesus had to minister to Peter to even let me get in. Now, who am I to say now that I'm in, I'm going to shut a door and it only belongs to this group? The devil is a liar.